Hello, and welcome to Dave and Sarah Travel. Today, we're doing something a little different. It's story time. I have traveled a lot in my life. I have boarded over 3,000 flights. I have rented hundreds and hundreds of rental cars, stayed in hundreds of different hotels, mostly for work. There are always amazing travel stories, and most of these are just good, clean fun. It deals with people fighting the airline. Today I'm going to tell you my worst ever flight. Single flight, not trip, just single flight. It was about 20 years ago, and I was flying from St. Louis, Missouri to Baltimore, Maryland. For this to be the worst flight I've ever taken, there's a few things that make this special. 1, flight took off on time. 2, it landed 20 minutes early. There was no added pressure, didn't lose my luggage. The airline was flawless, and I'm 99% certain this was on TWA, like I say, a couple of decades ago. The story begins, I boarded my flight, and I'm a little bit further back than I would be today, most likely. And sitting there, and you do the normal, okay, I don't want you sitting next to me, please no, okay. This small lady, cute, probably about 10 years older than me, comes in. She has the window seat, I have the aisle. Everything's great. She immediately tucks in, clicks her seatbelt, rolls up into a ball, and promptly falls asleep. It took about 15 seconds for her to pass gas for the first time. It was loud and it was noxious. It painted the air green. It was absolutely horrible. And of course, people around could hear it. And they see her and they see me, and which one do you think they thought was passing gas? It was not the cute little thing curled up in a ball in the chair next to me. So this goes on, and finally the air clears, and I'm hopeful that everything's settled down. And about that time, the flight attendants go walking down, and they're doing their count, and someone walks back, then walks back up and yells up, "Bring on 2." There are 2 seats, one in front of farty lady, and one directly across from me, the window seat over there. And actually it was 3 seats, but because this was a 2-3 configuration flight. And so on walks the 2 biggest people, and it's a couple, I have ever seen on an airplane in my life. I'm not anti-big people, none of that, but there's no way this was going to be comfortable. They were both well in excess of 400 pounds, and they both had little children basically riding them side saddle down the way. They could not walk down the aisle. They had to go sideways and shuffle sideways in order to get down the aisle to the seats. The guy that sat next to me, he was very smart. Very quickly, as they get on and they come back to their seats, they realize they're not sitting together. So she has a little boy, and I'm horrible at aging little kids. I think there's a decent chance that this was a set of twins, and they were both 2 years old, something like that. But they were both very young. She was carrying the boy, he was carrying the girl. They get ready to get to their seats, and she goes, "We should switch." So they swap children. Immediately, they both start crying, wanting the other parent. As someone who's never had kids, children crying can either be funny or the most annoying thing on the planet. So, on this day, it was the latter. There was not a whole lot funny going on in the world, since about every 2 minutes I keep smelling the methane queen going off. And so they get settled in. The guy across the aisle from me was very smart, and he said, "I will switch with her." And the flight attendant said, "Okay, wait until after the fasten seatbelt sign goes off after we're in the air." So she sits down, her seat plummets to the back. It didn't matter whether she hit the button or not. The flight attendant didn't even try to get her to lift her seat forward. She knew it was a lost cause. They had to have 2 seatbelt extenders, each of them, to be able to sit in their seat. Fortunately, I was not sitting next to either of them because there just wasn't a whole lot of room. By the time they got up in the air, the kids had finally calmed down just a little bit. So the moment that seatbelt sign got off, the guy across was up because he had been kicked and everything else in time to be able to get up. Again, the smartest person on the plane so far is the guy sitting across the aisle from me. So they finally swap. Well, there's no way sitting in these chairs is going to be comfortable for someone this big. So the kids were happy. They got to swap parents again. The little boy was on the woman, and the little girl was with dad. I'm assuming they were the parents. And it went downhill from here. Since it was not comfortable for them to sit, the woman stood in the aisle. And again, she can't sit sideways. She can't stand, with her shoulders even with the seat. She has to be sideways down the aisle. And so the boy, again, he's spraddled her side. And so, of course, now I have one of the biggest butts I've ever seen in my entire life invading my airspace because she will not sit down in her seat. And again, this is 20 some odd years ago. I am way less timid today than I was back then. I was just hoping life would end. Something would go on that would make this all go away. Finally, the flight attendant walks by and says, "You're going to have to sit down while we do service." I got a reprieve from that. The other lady is still trumpeting out as often as you can imagine. And it never gets better. It is completely noxious. It is a complete surprise to the senses every single time it happens. And every single person around thought I was the one dropping bombs. So the lady then, after service, gets up and has the boy there. And as people would get up to go to the restroom, she wouldn't get back into her seat. She would either lean into my space and make them go around, or she would take one step into her seat zone and make everyone come across. And of course, everyone's shoving their butt into my face as they go by. It is an absolute nightmare situation, but it gets worse. The little boy, who is sitting there side saddle, starts eating the cheese peanut butter crackers. And he's not old enough he's at that age where everything's in a fist. He doesn't know how to really hold things with fingers yet. So he's doing this, drool's going down. I literally have 4 or 5 orange spots of child peanut butter cheese cracker spit all over me. And he also has an absolute magical pair of shoes that the bottom of had such good traction, it would just rake across everything and just grab it and try to rip it off. And he's there just a kicking away, and he got my ear, got my arm, got the side of my face a couple of times. I'm in hell. This doesn't get much better than this. And remember, now, since she's there and sealing up the airway, there's less room for the methane to escape my seating area. I did get up, went to the restroom, and I stayed in there for a good 10 minutes at one point. Just the freedom of being away from that. Now remember, this is a full flight. There's nowhere else for me to go. I'm either in my seat or I'm in the toilet. So I go back, get back to my seat. Finally, they start saying that they're going to begin final descent. The girl next to me, who I got to tell you, she's faking like she's sleeping. There is no way she's sleeping through dropping all this. She wakes up, and I go, "Do you need to get up and go to the restroom?" "No, I'm good." She wasn't good. Fortunately, that was, I won't say the end of it, but while she was now awake, she was no longer actively creating a poison zone. So we finally land, and one part I didn't mention, I was flying, this was a business flight, and I was flying with 2 people that I work with. And I can see them up there, and they're sitting right in front of each other, and they keep looking back at me and smiling. And they don't have a clue what's going on. They're far enough away, they really don't understand. And so we get off the plane, and of course, every time they smile back at me, I know they're just being friendly humans. I never wanted to punch them so bad in my life. They had no clue. So we got off of the plane. They're waiting for me, and I'm telling them the story as we get to the baggage claim. And the guy that sat next to me, that was across, that ended up moving in front of Trumpet Butt, decided that he was going to come up to me and tell me how bad that flight was. Yeah. For him, it was inconvenient. For me, it was one of the layers of hell. Again, we landed 20 minutes early. It was a perfect flight by TWA. Everything came out great. I think our bags were in the first 10 bags that came off of the plane. We got to leave there early. It is the most non-airline related worst day of travel I think anyone has ever experienced. If anyone has something that can beat this, I want to hear it. I want to see it. Please leave the comment. That's the end of this story, though I am emotionally scarred for the rest of my life from this event. So, if you want to hear more of this, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, leave a comment, because I know I have told this story a lot over the last 20 some odd years. And people never realize how bad this is. And I have a feeling that the lady that was on the flight with me the that work for the same company. She still does. She's probably going to be watching this video at some point, and if so, Cindy, it still rankles. Have a good day, everyone. Thank you. Bye.